Hello and welcome to the event plus activities of the Circle Economy Symposium at Harvard. We will be talking to the people making the circle economy happen, rethinking how we design, make, and reuse everything. My name is Sergio Jacinto. I am a healthcare manager and a master candidate for sustainability transition management at Bologna Business School. It is my great pleasure to introduce to our guest today from Philips, Harald Tepper. Just reading here through my notes from Harold's biography, Harold is a lead of Philips Circular Economy program. Harold aims to drive innovation and business value creation via the transition to a circular economy. As such, he focuses on closing the loop, product and business model design, further embedding sustainability and circular thinking in the core processes and culture of the company, with active engagement of employees, of course. Prior to Philips, Harald worked as a director of the DNA investigation department at the Dutch Forensic Institute and as a transformation management consultant at McKinsey & Company. Harald holds a PhD in molecular physics and a teaching degree in music. In his spare time, Harald is an active musician, singer and clarinet player, and likes to explore how arts and artists can play a role in engaging the public in the great challenges of our time. Harald, thank you so much for coming in and taking your time to be present and speak with us.
My pleasure. Nice to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So I have so many things to ask you, and it's such an opportunity to speak to the person head of the circular economy at Philips. But so we'll just start for the beginning, and so I'll just ask you, when did your focus on circular economy and sustainability came about?
Yeah, and now good question. Thanks, and thanks also for this opportunity to be able to speak to you about this, to me, very inspiring topics. So I think, if you ask when does sustainability come about, I think the honest answer is right from the start of the foundation of Philips. Already 128 years ago, Philips started as a company that realized you're not just a company, but you have a responsibility in society. And the focus on that responsibility has changed over the years and over the decades. Started already with erecting houses for the employees, etc. Then I think around the 70s and 80s, more and more this environmental sustainability focus came in. As our eco-efficient programs, which were then a lot around doing less harm, energy efficiency, phasing out of hazardous substances, etc. I think around 2012, we were starting to talk more and more about circular economy. Even before the word existed, I would say, we started to realize that there is not only this emissions and energy component, but really also an aspect around material scarcity and efficient use of materials, because we have only one planet, and we are using too many resources. So that from that engagement, we became one of the founding partners of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and the rest is history, I would say. But I think one of the inspiring elements of that is of the circular economy is also the word economy, right? And it made us realize that this is not just about doing good, but also about doing well, and it can go hand in hand. So we have found that really ingraining sustainability and circular economy into your core strategy is really also a key driver for innovation.
Yeah, and that's actually one of my favorite things from Philips. Of course, being from healthcare and being a fan of sustainability and circular economy, Philips is always under my radar, and I'm always checking out what you guys are doing. But again, one of the big difference, I think, in terms of sustainability for a lot of companies that already start to speak about sustainability is or having a strategy for sustainability or sustainability being strategic. Can you speak to us a little bit of when sustainability actually became strategic for Philips?
Yeah, and I think it's a gradual process, but I think it really got a step up with ingraining the circular economy thinking into our strategies. It's not only how we think about it, but also how we are organized. So as a sustainability function, we are actually part of the innovation and strategy function. So we are where for some companies you see it's more of a side topic or a side function. Here we are really at the heart of where the innovation happens. And that has done us much good, because it's really helps you then to drive the innovation and to at the early stage of ideation already be able to think about how do we design products for sustainability, how do we design them for long lifetimes, etc.
So nowadays, especially with Corona, which was this immense shock, people are also more alert for also possible shock and believe that actually change can happen. So sustainability is gaining momentum and becoming in a lot of aspects in fashion. And so, of course, with the Circular Economy Action Plan having come about in recent plans, and also the SDGs, which have been about some years ago, people are also starting, especially in companies, to speak about planetary boundaries, also with donut economics from Kate Rayworth. What are your commitments regarding the SDGs development from UN? Is there any one of them that are, like, of course, companies can't tackle all of them at the same time, and I guess we have to think which ones are more strategic and which ones you can deliver more value on. So which are more valuable for Philips?
No, excellent question. Right on the bet, I would say. So indeed, obviously you influence a lot of them, but we have really consciously decided to focus on the ones where we think we can have the most impact. And if we look at our, let's say, our broader sustainability strategy, or sustainable strategy, you could say, then there is a social element to it. So of course, as a company, we have moved over the last years really from a diversified electronics company to a focused health technology company. So health technology is the core of our strategy, and that links very closely to SDG number 3 around health and well-being for all. So at the heart of our purpose statement is this ambition to improve the lives of 2.5 billion people by 2030, also aligned with the SDG timelines, which is really I would say, the guiding principle that drives everyone within Philips. It's also the most well-known purpose insight that really excites people. But we, in terms of responsibility, we've also said that as a leading health technology company, we should then also take responsibility for the fact that many people on Earth still don't even have access to affordable healthcare. So on top of this, or as part of this ambition to improve the lives of 2.5 billion people, we said we want to reach 400 million people in underserved communities, also by that same timeline, by 2030. So that is one of our big commitments, and there's a whole program around that, around access to care and innovation for access to care for underserved communities. Then on the more environmental sustainability side, we have two main focal areas, one around sustainable materials with our circular economy and eco-design programs, and one around climate action, and where we have steep ambitions on both of them. So in terms of climate action related to SDG 13, we have aligned all our targets for 2025 with the science-based targets. We stay within a 1.5 degree global warming scenario, and have become carbon neutral in our own operations by the end of last year. And on circular economy, we have ambitions around circular revenue. So in the next 5 years, we will grow our circular revenue contribution from 15% to 25%. We have an ambition to close the loop on all our professional equipment, so offer trade-in and take-back opportunity for our customers. And we have become zero waste to landfill in our operations, in our factory sites by the end of last year, which was an amazing accomplishment.
It is.
And also exciting, also engaging internally. So there we extend the scope to across our warehouses and offices to really embed circular practices all across our Philips sites.
Yeah, it truly is a very difficult journey to do. Of course, very rewarding, and it's very true what you said. A lot of people don't have resources. I, for example, was in Angola last year as a deputy CEO of a big company and a private company in healthcare, and you can see the true contracts and the true suffering of people that actually really don't have access to healthcare. So a lot of us in the comfort of our home, especially in a place like the Netherlands, we have no idea how it is not to have access to healthcare. And congratulations also on becoming carbon neutral. It is a monumental, truly a monumental efficiency. And just going on the topic, being Harvard carbon neutral is in itself a really great feat. And actually, these days, again, with the sustainability and the circular economy topic gaining more momentum, we see a lot of offerings actually starting to come in of companies, consulting companies coming in to help others offset. But still, we still a lot of companies just progress towards reducing carbon and not to getting carbon neutral. And of course, there's still another gap, which will already be extremely difficult to go to be carbon positive and eventually starting to offset all the carbon legacy that going to be around for decades. Do you think it's possible for Philips eventually to tackle carbon legacy?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we see other companies like Microsoft coming up with these kind of targets. Eh?
Mm-hmm.
So in Philips, we've chosen a different focus, I would say, and really chosen to go with the science-based targets to say because that is the framework that says if every company and a government would stay into those limits, then we would make a tremendous impact. And I think, yeah, talking about carbon neutrality and carbon positive depends also a lot on the scope that you're talking about. So that's why I say we have become carbon neutral in our operations, which was already a major accomplishment, but it's not the end of the journey.
Yeah.
And for instance, to look at where we have our impact, we, since a couple of years, every year publish an EP&L statement, so our environmental profit and loss statement, where you can show where is our main impact. And what you see there is, because we sell a lot of electronics related products, is that the vast majority of our impact is in the use phase of our products. That means also over the next 5 years we will have a major focus on further energy efficient design of our products, because that is where the main part of our emissions are coming from at this moment. So rather than looking back maybe at what you have done in your operations over the last years, which is also even difficult with a so rapidly changing company scope, we think there's actually much more impact to be gained in that area of the use phase.
Yeah. How did you tackle directly the use of renewable sources towards reducing carbon? What was your choice there?
Yeah, so again, there's a material and an energy element to it, but if you look indeed and still at the climate action scope, then we have several elements to this carbon neutrality. It starts with reducing the use of energy, really energy efficient use, not only in our products but also in our factories. Then also on our sites, we advance a lot in local energy production, like solar panels, local windmills, etc. When that's not possible, then we engage in large-scale power purchasing agreements. So, for instance, already in 2017, we were part of this big consortium in the United States, which built a huge wind farm there, which basically helped us now to run all of our US operations on renewable energy.
Wow.
Added a similar wind farm in the Netherlands in 2019. And we just announced a new consortium, pan-European consortium, that extends our renewable energy use from the Netherlands to the whole of Europe. And that's only talking still about energy in our own operations, in our own sites.
Yeah.
Right. So then another element that we are looking at is business travel. With greening our fleet, going to more electric cars, really reducing also our travel. Doing a lot of remote maintenance helps a lot, right? Instead of on-site maintenance.
Yeah.
And then the third element is really around logistics. With green shipping programs, but also very conscious choice of when do you need air freight for your products and when can you go to other modes of transport.
Yeah, seeing you going into all those details is and understanding the scope of Philips operations and the number of people it employs, you really can understand how broad you have to go to tackle and really how difficult it is and how much you are willing to invest. How do you do this on your customer size? How do you help your customers also? Of course, one of the main advantages for a lot of companies is the marketing part, that they can market products as being greener. But how do you help your customers being aware of circular economy and sustainability aspects?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So also being still quite a broad company, there's a lot of different types of customers. But if I look at our large-scale hospital customers, then they are actually also increasingly aware themselves already. So one of the things we do there is just making transparent what is the impact of our products. Are they, how energy efficient are they? How, for instance, we have an MR piece of equipment that we launched, I think 2 years ago, that is really reducing the amount of helium that it uses from 1,500 liters to 7 liters, wow, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of these, really green products as we mentioned them, and more we translate that into what we call eco passports, which is basically how we can convey this in a transparent way also to our customers. I think another element is an active engagement with customers on new business models, right? Moving more and more to access and outcome-based models, rentals, products as a service, etc. But also customer loyalty programs around take back. So whenever we end of life solutions, whenever a product comes end of life, that we have pledged that at least for our small, big equipment, that we always do a trade-in offer to our customers. And last but not least, what we see more and more happening since the last years is that hospitals have their own sustainability requirements and ambitions, and for instance also around circular economy, and come to us to say, can you help co-create with us what it means to have a circular operation room?
Yeah.
And it's not obvious what the answer is, but it's incredibly exciting to find that out together.
And a very big problem to tackle, because there are so many specific things, and one-use devices, all single-use devices also to consider. Healthcare is for sure. I know that Philips is specializing, eventually will specialize more in healthcare, and is beginning to push away other operations. I believe that is underway. And healthcare is actually very, for my case also, it's kind of personal healthcare, because I discovered and decided to transition to this area when I found out that healthcare was actually one of the most pollutant industries on earth, and people don't have that idea, nor do they a lot of times have that. Actually, healthcare companies and hospitals tend to be really big structures, and in some countries, actually in Portugal, it's one of the major employers. So even one hospital can have around 6,000 workers in them. So it's a lot of people, a lot of infrastructures, and a lot of issues to tackle.
So maybe to add one thing to that, to us, healthcare is not only about hospitals, so it is around the whole health continuum. And I think one of the ways to keep the whole healthcare system affordable is moving more and more from the hospital to the home, which means we are investing a lot in e-health, and so in ways to distribute care more to less expensive places, which is in the end your home, which has also a huge sustainability benefit.
Yeah,
right? So we are also thinking about the consumer space, what we can do there, and we also still have quite a large portfolio in the consumer space around healthy living and well-being related products. And what you see there is that, yeah, it's really only recent that we find that customers are changing their buying behavior based on the greenness of their products. Up till quite recently, we really didn't see that, and we just thought we need to drive this because it's the right thing to do. But more recently, we are experimenting in a couple of markets with really different positioning, really making it more explicit that the one product is more greener than the other, and we see start of different buying behaviors. And so we're playing around with that also, for instance, in offering an opportunity to buy carbon neutral.
Yeah. It's interesting. Of course, you're right when you mentioned that healthcare is much more broader. And I noticed also in the public information you have on Philips strategy that you clearly envision a company, a person's health throughout their whole life, not only when they need treatment when they're sick, but throughout and I just think that's brilliant, and it's really a broader and different, completely different vision from a lot of companies. How about considering your employees? You have a big social responsibility also, and a big social opportunity, I would say, and because you have, as Robert Metzger said when he opened the session for us, he was kind enough to open the Harvard Circular Economy Symposium for us. He mentioned you have 80,000 employees. How do you distribute all that knowledge and make people savvy about circular economy and sustainability?
Yeah, that's again a very good question. I would hope there was one silver bullet to it, but of course there's not. So it's one of our big focal areas to think about how do we fully engage our employees. So we have a dedicated transformation program to think about that. And there are a couple of elements to this. So one is around communication. So we have over the last years invested a lot in sharpening our stories, making it as clear as possible, making sure that it is consistent, because many of our programs around circular economy and eco-design and climate are overlapping, and it can sometimes be confusing. So making sure that you always have the same stories is relevant. What we have learned more recently is that it's not enough to have a corporate story, because circular economy in one business means something quite different from another business, or it means something different from a sales accountant towards a designer. So we are now making more and more detailed communication assets and stories about what does it mean for you as a designer, or as a business architect, or as somebody in finance, for instance. And along with the communication material, we're also then designing different training materials to help train these different target groups as in Philips. So that's around communication and training. Then we do a lot on engagement in terms of building communities of practice and building infrastructure for people to not only understand how they can contribute, but also to find each other and to work on common challenges.
Okay.
And last but not least, leadership is also important, of course. So we are also working on ingraining all this purpose and impact thinking more in our leadership development programs. And also not only for leaders, but we have quite a robust system of metrics and measurements across the company. And so we talked already, or you asked already about the targets. Now we have quite robustly cascaded those targets across different management layers. And even since quite recently, some of these key sustainability targets are now also part of the incentive system of our executives.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and actually, even just giving circular notions to people, it completely transforms our way of thinking, and it's so difficult to go back after you understand the circularity concept, the circular concept. Getting a little bit into the business and your business models. Again, being aware that you're shifting and concentrating more towards healthcare, also in a broader manner, of course. But I also would like to, find out what business models you're using towards healthcare, especially product as a service. And I also would like to speak to you a little bit about a case that comes frequently mentioned also through Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the lighting as a service, which is completely disruptive to the industry.
Maybe to start there. So lighting is not part of our core business anymore, but this is where it all started. Indeed, together with Ellen MacArthur and ourselves and Thomas Rauw Architects, really developing this lighting as a service concept. It's still at the core of where we want to move to, right? These different business models. If the more you retain the ownership of equipment and products close to yourself or in your own scope, then you are also more incentivized to make sure it's long-lived, to make sure it's upgradable, that it's refurbishable, etc. So we have translated that light as a service concept towards our large-scale equipment. So already for years we have refurbishment facilities for MR, DXR, ultrasound across the world, where we take back our equipment, sometimes in these new business models, but sometimes also equipment that we have just transactionally sold before, and we just offer take back at the end of the lifetime. But really also with the ambition to strip it down and to refurbish it and to build it back up to an as new piece of equipment and sell it back to the same customer or to different markets and different customers. And so that started for logical reasons with the large-scale equipment, because that's where the biggest value is. Now for the next 5 years, the new program that we just launched, we have said we extend this, at least it's closing the loop, a commitment to all our professional equipment. So we're also 5 years from now we'll be able to offer take back for patient monitors, defibrillators, ventilators, etc.
The smaller ones,
smaller
devices.
And also there we have already launched first deals around monitoring as a service, for instance.
Yeah, that's already a big shift also. How about in terms of metrics? You spoke of course about metrics, and you also mentioned quickly circular revenue and how it was gradually building up, and you have ambitious goals. How do you define, before getting more into metrics, how do you define growth for you? Because growth really has an ample meaning, right? And can have a totally different richness in this context of circular economy. So what is growth for Philips?
Yeah, there are several answers to that, I think. But I think if I would link that to the circular economy, then to us the true spirit of the circular economy is to create impact with as little resources as possible. Right? So meaning that you can still have growth of your market share or economic growth, or and impact it goes further even than financials, right? So in the end we try to measure the impact on our patients. And the circular economy element to that is to continuously think, how can we do this with less resources? And that comes back to now what we said already around keeping products for as long as possible in the life cycle by take back, refurbishment, etc. But also before that, it goes around maintenance, upgrading, making sure that you don't even need to take it back, but that it lasts already for longer. And even before that, linking also our move to a more and more digital company towards this ambition to become less dependent on resources. So we have more and more software solutions that yeah, in essence, bring the same impact as maybe previously a piece of hardware would do. And that is, I think, ultimate circular economy, right? That you can deliver the same value to your patients or to society, with even sometimes without hardware.
Harold, you said recently in a WBCSD podcast, which I enjoyed immensely, by the way, about circular metrics, that if you measure it, things get done. And that's so important. And since circular economy is actually not just meant to be pretty and look good on paper, how do you value proper metrics in reaching a circular economy?
I think it's essential, to be honest. And it's also what I've learned from coming into Philips and being working in the private sector. This is how businesses are steered. I think more and more it's also how governance should be steered. No, it's essential that the change that we need to make as a society is so massive that if you don't have a clear direction on where that needs to go, then you won't get there. I think there we have really benefited from also my predecessors who have very early on said, okay, how can we define this? How can we define circular revenue, but also a closing the loop statement? How do we measure that internally? And then even if you have defined that, not limit that to the corporate level, but really also think about what does an individual business leader need to do that. So we have, like I said before, we have cascaded these targets towards the levels where the daily decisions are made. So that's essential, but it's not easy, right? And also for the circular economy, there's many different aspects to a circular economy that it's not easy to capture that in one metric.
And there's still a lot to go, right? Because circular economy is not a science by itself, but a conjunction of schools of thoughts and developing sciences. And of course, developing a common framework will be one of the major challenges. Moving on to a different subject, to design. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which you are the founders, as you said, state that 80% of project impact is determined in the design stage. And of course, design and having an eco-design is really a great achievement. But I find that frequently it actually translates to doing less harm, which is already good, I would say. But how can we move further? How can we be positive? How does Philips tackle this?
It's not an easy answer to that. So let me first indeed echo the importance of it. And that's why we also have this dedicated eco-design program. So we have stepped up our commitments now with the new program towards 100% eco-design. So in 5 years from now, we want to make sure that all of our new product introductions go through our eco-design processes and criteria. But then the crux, of course, is in what do you mean with those criteria? And those are criteria that become sharper and sharper over the years. So I think, because we have eco-design programs already for decades, and they started indeed out with looking at energy efficiency, material efficiency, phasing out of hazardous substances. That continues to be a journey, of course. And now more recently, we have added to that what we call circular ready design criteria. That maybe comes closer to your question. What we have learned from doing that is that we call it explicitly circular ready design because there is not such a thing as a circular product. The circularity is always a combination of the product and the business model. So what we do in this circular ready training that we have internally is we work with our architects and our business modelers, so people more on the market side, to look specifically for each business and a product portfolio. What is the overarching business model with which you want to put this product in the market? And that then defines on what is the best circular design strategy for that product. And sometimes that means design for recycling, sometimes it means design for repair, design for refurbishment, etc. So it's not that there is one answer to that across the whole company. It's really about customization.
Yeah. Getting also to a difficult question, and it's actually a business model. Well, of the past 150 years, and the main maybe source of growth into planned obsolescence. A lot of companies still have short cycles for their products. Products are not able to be updated, or even we see with cars, even the design gets obsolete very quickly. How can companies as a whole shift for other revenue streams and get away from this plan for obsolescence model that actually makes people just have to buy new products from time to time?
Yeah, I think for me it's all focus on the impact that you want to create, right? If you are able with your products or services or software solutions to create impact for society, then there must also be a way to do that in such a way that you can also capture part of that value as a fair share return to your company. So we are really focusing on the long-term value creation, and that means indeed then designing for longevity, designing for take back, refurbishment, upgradability, repair, etc. And more also platform design. So making sure that, let's say, the core of your product or of your product portfolio is uniform across a big part of your portfolio, so that you can reuse it in new designs and in new versions of your products. And I think what you also see, at least in our space, more and more that the difference between different stages of your products is to a large part also designed by the software on it, more so than the underlying hardware. So that helps also in this transition to a circular economy, as you can basically upgrade then your product remotely to a new version without even having to reinstall or take back or waste some material.
Yeah, you're so right. And I was reading the other day, or was it in a podcast actually? I heard that if you actually even consider, in respect to what you said, the software part of things, the amount of devices that our phone substitutes is just crazy. It would just be such a big amount of devices that we used 15 years ago, and now we just concentrated in a little thing, and even new devices just get substituted by a software updated and new apps. Getting a little bit into more specific circular economy, maybe technical terms, we've spoken about, of course, closing the loop. And I find that closing the loop sometimes is a little bit restrictive in its meaning, because of course we want to keep materials inside, but closing the loop a lot of times means that we actually have to open ourselves in our companies to the outside to make one's waste become waste become another industry's food, for example. Do you have any example strategic partnerships that Philips has to secure and to closing the loop?
Yeah, definitely. That I understand what you're saying, and so that's also why I think that example for the real contribution of digital transformation is such an inspiring example, right? Where you really move into a more circular world without closing a loop on equipment. But indeed, also in our closing the loop, also in that closing the loop commitment, for instance, we have learned over the last 2 years when we had this program running that we had this ambition, and we reached it also to do a trade-in offer with every machine that becomes end of life. That doesn't mean that all of those pieces of equipment are ready to refurbish by us, right? Sometimes, I mean, if they have gone through 3 or 4 life cycles, then you can imagine there is always an end to it. So then at some point recycling is the only option. But then we said, okay, we need to make sure that we then team up with responsible recyclers across the globe that also adhere to the Philips standards of zero waste to landfill, etc. Right, so maybe that's one of the answers, right, on how do you need to team up. So we actually, in each and every market, we had to scout for those recyclers that were willing and able to do that. Another example from a couple of years ago is our circular vacuum cleaner, and I think you can still find a nice clip of that on YouTube, where we wanted to move to more recycled plastic in the housing of that vacuum cleaner, but the characteristics of that were so specific that we could not find a non-virgin version of that. So in the end, the only option after exploring several options was to really make sure that the plastic out of a vacuum cleaner ends up again in our vacuum cleaner. Yeah. So and that's an amazing example of where we teamed up with the local recycling companies in the Netherlands. So when I as a consumer bring a Philips vacuum cleaner to my recycling dump here in the neighborhood, then it gets selected out, and it gets in the end via a couple of other partners, that plastic housing comes back into the next Philips vacuum cleaner.
Mm-hmm. Still continue on this loop subject. How do you shorten the loop, right? It's known that the shorter the loop, the more resilient and robust the systems can be from outside shocks. A lot of them, especially in terms of supply chain, a lot of companies felt with the Corona events. Did you change anything actually through recent events, or how do you think about the shortening the loop and sourcing locally?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is also dependent on the type of equipment and on the scale of your equipment. So if you look at our large scale equipment, then you could say we try to tighten the loop by looking at the different circles in the Elmer-Carter butterfly diagram, right? So in terms of our refurbishment capacity, with our large scale equipment, we always try to upgrade first, then we try to do an on-site refurbishment. If that doesn't work, we bring the whole system back to our refurbishment factories, where we have two across the world. We try to refurbish the whole system. If that doesn't work anymore, we do still parts harvesting, and those parts then go distributed across our globe towards all our field service engineers to be applied in maintenance service. So that's a way to customize this already. I think what we will see over the next 5 years, now that we will move more and more to also closing the loop and take back of smaller equipment, we will have to figure out what you need to do locally in terms of repair facilities and what you need to do more centrally. And it's a balance, I think, between scale and proximity.
Well, time just flies. We're down to 5 minutes, and I still want to ask you so many stuff. But let's go to the questions, which is actually a nightmare for circular economy, and a lot of people, a lot of companies are not ready to tackle reverse logistics. So all that you spoke about in terms of getting that product back, and especially when we get into details of little equipments, right? It really gets into other concepts and using, for example, blockchain technology from the beginning for tracking. How do you handle that problem? What's your approach?
Yeah. No, yeah, again, so on the large scale equipment, it's just a triage per case actually. So whenever we do a trade-in offer to a customer and it gets accepted, then per case we will look at what is the effort and the value still in the machine, and what is then the best possible solution in terms of local repurposing or central refurbishing, both financially and for the planet. And I think there we need to do a lot of pilots with our smaller equipment, and those are going on as we speak on how to do this. So what we do look at a lot is that you don't need to do all of this yourself, right? I mean, the whole economy is moving more and more towards this take back and refurbishment concept. So you see more and more third parties stepping in to help there. Right? Also in the consumer space, you can imagine that with this huge uplift of direct-to-consumer online sales. I mean, if I look here outside to my street, I see vans coming by every hour, right? And you can imagine, basically, that's a big infrastructure that's there. These vans can also take back more and more equipment, right, from customers. It's not easy to arrange that, but there's, I think, lots of creative possibilities that will rise by themselves over the next years. That we need to team up with.
Yeah, especially concerning micromobility and last mile deliveries, right? And let's see if one day we will have drones flying around. I don't know how we're going to handle the noise, but that's another problem. So let me see, we still have 1 or 2 minutes. Let me ask you this also broad, but very important questions. So what regulations would you like to see our governments tackle? Because this has an extreme importance in accelerating the circular economy. Even, for example, if you take recent announcement as in France and in England for the ban of diesel cars, it's had a massive shift in those markets and provoke immense acceleration. What do you think would be important and priority for our government to regulate in order to shift?
Now, let me first say, I think what is extremely encouraging is that we see more and more governments with their own ambitious targets on circular economy and Paris climate goals, and the Dutch government for sure is one of the front runners there with this ambition to become completely circular by 2050. So that's nice because it means it's on top of the agenda, and you see that now coming back also in the EU with the Circular Economy Action Plan. I think what is good is that regulators realize that they need to really enrich those plans with detailed regulations and detailed requirements, and those discussions are on the way at this moment. We need to find that out together. So hence your question is right on top of that. I think, let me draw out a few. So one thing that we think really needs to be addressed is this barriers for cross-boundary shipments.
Okay.
So what you see is that when you want to move more and more to a circular economy, you will do more refurb, repair, etc. So you see more and more need to ship used products or refurbished products or used parts across country boundaries. And in many countries around the world, those types of shipments are treated as waste. And it is not waste, right? So the global waste regulations really need to be adapted to the spirit of the circular economy, because that's really a huge barrier at the moment, not only for us, but for a lot of companies. Now then, of course, you can think about taxation and incentivization of labor over material cost.
Yeah, that would be great.
Which is a very important one. It's not easy to do. We need to do that globally. But thirdly, it's not necessarily regulation, but if you talk about what is the role of the governments around the globe are also big buyers. So they have also a big role to play in circular procurement.
And as examples,
right? Yeah. And that's, I think, where also some investment has to take place, that if you have these ambitions to become more circular, how do you also translate that to your selection of your sales and your buying decision?
Harold, just 45 minutes just flew, and I wish we had more 45 minutes just to pick your brain. But thank you so much for coming in. It was a true pleasure to have you here and be able to ask all these questions from you. So
thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. So just to share some more things to people who will be listening into this talk. and thanking Philips, who truly is a front runner in the circular economy here in Holland, which is in the Netherlands, which is also a country who is a front runner in circular economy. And they're really impactful in the environment, helping businesses understand how being environment friendly can be profitable, which is the major shift we have to do. In early December, we had the pleasure of hosting a talk with Richard Berger, the co-founder of Swapjets, that here in the Netherlands, we can see everywhere through my window, just Swapjets going by. Later this month, we will also have a very interesting conversation with Anna Carolina, the global head sustainability from OLC's. My name is Sergio Jacinto. I'm a healthcare management expert and a master's candidate for sustainability transition at Bologna Business School. Thank you so much for joining.